Hello and welcome to a new video on my channel. Today I'm excited to bring you part 17 of the story Pandora and the Eternal War. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And hey, free to share it with your friends too. Now, without further ado, let's dive straight into the story. Pandora, Camilla, and Martina moved stealthily through the dark streets of Metropolis Alpha. The night was alive with the sound of their footsteps, muffled by the snow blanketing the ground. Steam rose in thin tendrils from the manhole covers, and snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, illuminated by the sporadic glow of flickering streetlights. A brilliant blue lightning bolt streaked across the distant horizon, momentarily flooding the city in a harsh, ethereal light. Above, the massive moon, usually casting its serene glow over the city, was obscured by thick clouds, leaving the streets in an oppressive gloom. Pandora suppressed a sigh. She wasn't tired. Her body rarely required much sleep, but she still wished she could be curled up in bed. For someone who didn't need sleep, she certainly enjoyed it. "Are we almost there?" Pandora asked, her voice tinged with boredom. "Yes, boss. Just around that corner," Camilla replied, her voice muffled by the black mask she wore. Martina trailed behind, her gaze fixed on the enigmatic figure Camilla referred to as Boss. To her eyes, Pandora was a shadowy figure cloaked in smoky darkness, her silhouette just barely resembling that of a woman. The conversation between Camilla and Pandora was distorted in Martina's ears, as though filtered through layers of static. Martina couldn't fathom how many different arcanis, the paranormal abilities of this world, Pandora must possess to create such an overwhelming aura. There was something distinctly unnatural about the energy radiating from Pandora. It wasn't just the usual paranormal power associated with arcanis. No, there was something else. Something wild and unrelenting. It reminded Martina of the whispered tales of magic, the kind of force that bends the world to its wielder's will. But this was different. What is this feeling? Martina wondered silently, her heart pounding as she tried to make sense of it. It's as if this energy doesn't care about what's logical or illogical. It just is. It exists, unbound and unapologetic. But what kind of power could feel like that? There's no way such a force could exist. "We're here," Camilla said abruptly, snapping Martina out of her thoughts. Camilla, now fully embracing her black mask persona, gestured toward the corner of the building. "According to Marta, there's an entrance to an underground complex hidden inside that violet shipping container. We'll need a distraction." Pandora tilted her head, a mischievous grin spreading across her face. "I say we charge in and beat down anyone who gets in our way," she said casually, as though she were discussing the weather. Camilla groaned under her breath, shaking her head. "That's not." But Pandora was already stepping forward, her smoky silhouette exuding an air of playful confidence that bordered on arrogance. Martina hesitated, unsure whether to be terrified or in awe. The night seemed to hold its breath, the storm clouds above rumbling faintly, as if in anticipation of what was to come. Camilla, or rather in her persona as Black Mask, shrugged her shoulders and began following Pandora around the corner. Pandora walked confidently ahead, her mind calm despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead. She had little doubt that she could pull this off. After all, even if she couldn't manage to free the people trapped in the underground complex, or if someone stronger than her showed up, she could always run. Her confidence stemmed partly from her awareness of teleportation technology, which had only been discovered 20 years ago. As she walked, her mind briefly wandered. What if there's already something capable of neutralizing spatial manipulation, she wondered. She turned her head slightly, glancing back at Camilla, who was following her closely. "Camilla," Pandora began, her tone casual yet curious, "do you think there's anything that could neutralize spatial manipulation, like prevent teleportation or distortions?" Camilla, her voice slightly distorted by the mask, replied after a short pause, "I doubt it, and I'm up to date on tech and science, as you know." She tilted her head slightly, considering how best to explain it. Teleportation is the simplest form of spatial manipulation, but even that's incredibly complex. It requires an enormous amount of computational power to account for all the variables, especially the movement of Samaria itself. Pandora nodded, already familiar with the name of their world, but intrigued by the explanation. Camilla continued, her voice calm but full of conviction. Think about it. Samaria is constantly in motion, rotating, orbiting, shifting through the universe. Any teleportation that doesn't account for these factors would just leave you stranded in space, or worse, dead. That's why abilities capable of teleportation are so rare. The ones that survived and got passed down are the ones that inherently account for these variables. Any that didn't, well, they didn't last long in the gene pool. Pandora found herself oddly reassured by this. It wasn't just blind chance. There was logic and survival behind why these abilities worked the way they did. She offered a small smile and glanced ahead again as the group approached their destination. Behind them, Martina trailed silently, her thoughts a mix of confusion and unease. Moments earlier, she had been fixated on the strange, chaotic energy she had felt radiating from Cascard, Pandora's disguised form. Yet now, the memory of what exactly had unsettled her so deeply seemed to have slipped from her mind entirely. What was it, she thought, her brows furrowing as she tried to recall the sensation. But no matter how hard she concentrated, the specifics eluded her, leaving only a vague sense of unease. She shook her head and focused on keeping up with Pandora and Camilla. Pandora and the Eternal War. Pandora, Camilla, and Martina arrive at the violet container, its metallic surface reflecting the dim light from the cloudy night sky. The abandoned harbor around them is eerily silent, save for the distant sound of waves lapping against the shore. A few guards patrol the area, their silhouettes sharp against the shadows of the crumbling warehouse. The guards, armed with energy weapons and projectile firearms, notice them approaching. The tension in the air is thick as the men shift into a defensive stance. A few of the soldiers raise their weapons, aiming directly at Pandora and the others. "Stop right there," one of the guards calls out, his voice trembling with uncertainty, but his weapon steady. Pandora doesn't stop. She continues walking forward as though the threat doesn't faze her. The guards hesitate for a moment, but then, as if to prove their authority, they fire. The plasma projectiles shoot toward her with a sizzling hum, their violent, glowing blue streaks lighting up the night. But Pandora simply raises her hand and the projectiles halt midair. The plasma spheres freeze in space, floating like small beads of energy suspended by an invisible force. They bubble and crackle, shifting in color from blue to a deep, eerie violet. How? How is that possible? One of the soldiers mutters, eyes wide with confusion as he stares at the suspended projectiles. Pandora moves her hand again, and the plasma spheres begin to converge. The small individual orbs combine, forming a larger, pulsating sphere of energy that hums with a deadly intensity. The guards stand frozen, unsure of what to do next, their confusion mounting. "Shit! What the hell is that?" One of them shouts, looking to his comrades for answers, but they too are paralyzed by the sight. Pandora steps forward, unfazed by their confusion. As her foot falls onto the ground, the guards snap out of their stupor and begin to fire again. The plasma sphere expands, growing larger and brighter as it gathers energy. The sound of gunfire fills the air, but it's drowned out by the deafening crackle of the energy in Pandora's hand. With another motion, the plasma sphere explodes outward in a blinding flash, the shockwave knocking the guards off their feet. Their weapons clatter to the ground, the air filled with the smell of burnt ozone and the sizzling of the scorched earth. The guards are left lying in the dirt, groaning and disoriented, their weapons no longer a threat. Pandora surveys the scene calmly, as if she's merely brushing aside an inconvenience. Camilla and Martina follow her closely, their eyes still wary of any remaining threats. "They won't be a problem anymore," Pandora murmurs, her voice low and steady as she glances over her shoulder at the fallen guards. "Let's move quickly." Pandora gazed at the violet container, wondering how they would get inside. She knew it had to be the right one. Her arcanis, which acted like a lie detector, would have alerted her if Martina had been dishonest. On top of that, she could feel the hum of energy resonating through the ground beneath her feet. An idea began to take shape in her mind, though she wasn't entirely sure what it was. She raised her hand and closed her eyes, focusing on the energy around her. She could feel it, the currents running through her own nervous system, and the electricity flowing through the ground and cables beneath her. Pandora instinctively knew she could do something with it, even if she wasn't entirely certain how. "What is she doing?" asked a man in a suit, his voice tense as he turned to the woman beside him. Both wore uniforms emblazoned with the Nova insignia. The woman leaned forward, studying the surveillance monitor intently. "She seems to be thinking. But why? There's nothing in this port that would interest heroes or villains, except us," the woman replied, suspicion lacing her tone. "That's impossible. No one outside knows about our research facility. How could they?" Before he could finish, the power went out, plunging the room into darkness. "What was that?" "An EMP?" the woman asked aloud, her voice sharp with alarm. The room was utterly silent, save for the faint, eerie sound of cooling systems winding down. The blackout was complete, far stronger than any EMP they'd prepared for. After all, they had never considered EMP protection necessary. Solar storms were the only plausible cause for such a disruption, and the city's energy shield usually intercepted those long before they could cause damage. "How the hell is she doing this?" the woman snapped. "She's only supposed to have one Arcanus. Why does she suddenly have two?" Outside, Pandora observed the container, sensing that her efforts had worked. Still, she sent out another pulse just to be sure. "What the hell is she even doing?" Martina asked, bewildered. Can you control EMPs now? Since when is that a thing?" Black Mask chimed in, equally confused. "I don't even know what an EMP is," Pandora replied casually. "I just wanted to try something out." The fact that Camilla knew more about her abilities than most made Pandora uneasy. Yet, on the other hand, she couldn't go through life never trusting anyone. It was a risky gamble, one she wasn't entirely sure would pay off. Though Camilla had some understanding of how her powers worked, Pandora had never revealed that her Chaos Arcanus, Asmosia, could steal abilities from both the dead and from monsters. "But how do we get in?" "The door is still locked," Martina pointed out. "We make our own entrance," Pandora said with a grin, forming a glowing ball of plasma in her hand. The plasma alone would have been enough to cut through the metal wall like a plasma torch. However, knowing the residue could be traced back to them, Pandora decided to take a different approach. Drawing on her abilities, she combined her C-rank fire manipulation with her D-rank electricity manipulation, blending the two energies into a swirling turquoise mass. The result was mesmerizing, an amorphous, flickering substance that crackled like lightning, danced like flames, and shimmered like plasma. Pandora tilted her head, uncertain of what she had created, but impressed nonetheless. "Well, this seems to be working. Time to cut." Following a sudden impulse, Pandora shaped the energy into a blade, a glowing sword reminiscent of a lightsaber, though without a proper hilt. With a swift motion, she cut through the metal wall. The severed section of the wall began to shift, glowing red-hot around the edges as it slowly fell away with a resounding crash. "That looks really cool," Pandora remarked, clearly pleased with herself. As the metal slab hit the ground with a deafening thud, a distant rumble echoed through the air. "All right, let's head in," she said, gesturing for the others to follow. Martina climbed through the newly made opening, descending a staircase that seemed to vanish into the floor. Pandora blinked, confused. Where there should have been solid ground, the floor shimmered and rippled like liquid. "It's a force field," Camilla explained, suppressing a chuckle at Pandora's puzzled expression. "It vibrates the smallest particles at a specific frequency, creating the illusion of a solid surface. It's not a hologram or an illusion in the traditional sense, so you probably can't perceive that it's actually fluid. I'd recommend holding your breath while passing through. It's technically a liquid. But don't worry, these fields are rarely more than 10 centimeters thick." "That's mildly unsettling. I guess I'm not exactly up to date on this kind of tech," Pandora admitted, following Camilla through the liquid-like barrier. The futuristic corridor beyond was dark and foreboding, the faint hum of energy their only guide. As Pandora stepped into the room, the force field behind her began to dissolve, its particles scattering and settling on the floor like a fine mist. Pandora knelt, brushing her fingers against the substance. It felt oddly familiar. "Wait a second, is this stuff Izmir?" she asked. "Yeah, it is," Camilla confirmed. "No wonder I'm not wet," Pandora muttered. Izmir was a bizarre substance, a gas with binding forces so strong that it behaved like a liquid. Its unique properties baffled even the most advanced researchers. Though it looked like water, it allowed individuals to breathe normally as the gas was infused with oxygen. Its inability to mix with other substances made it safe for organisms to absorb oxygen directly. So the residual energy was what kept the gas stabilized in place, Pandora thought to herself, illuminating the room with her glowing blade. Before her loomed another metal door, which met the same fate as the wall before it. The girls stepped into a narrow corridor, equally dark and foreboding. "Which way do we go?" Pandora asked, glancing at Martina. Martina's response was quick and confident. "Right, then left." Pandora nodded, her instincts assuring her of the truth in Martina's words. With a brief glance at the fork in the path ahead, she led the way, the two girls following close behind. As Pandora sprints through the hallway, her thoughts race just as quickly. Keeping the illusions active was mentally exhausting, a task that required constant focus. The strain was beginning to take its toll, manifesting as a dull headache that pulsed behind her temples. My superpowers are undeniably useful, she thought, turning a corner sharply. But the real problem is that I can't use too many of them at once. There's always a limit. Surprisingly, reaching the stairwell and gaining access to the children's cells proved to be easier than she anticipated. The EMP Pandora had unleashed earlier had rendered the collars ineffective, their control mechanisms fried. Then, as if on cue, the overhead lights flickered back on. Pandora felt a wave of relief, knowing Martina had already explained everything to the children. "I wish for all exclusive chemicals within a 300-meter radius to remain inert and incapable of igniting for the next 33 seconds, Martina declared with confidence. As she spoke, her hands glowed faintly, a ripple of energy shimmering outward. Without hesitation, she began removing the collars from the children, tossing them unceremoniously into a corner of the room. The underground research facility they had infiltrated held roughly 8 cells, each packed with 20 to 30 children. Pandora raised her hand, focusing intently. A portal shimmered into existence before her. Connecting to another, she opened 50 meters away on a snow-covered road leading to the harbor. The cold air seeped through the rift, a stark contrast to the sterile, oppressive atmosphere of the facility. "You can trust this person," Martina said, addressing the children as they gathered near the portal. "We've come to rescue you. Once you step through this portal, you'll be safe." Martina's reassurances faded into the background as Pandora became lost in her own thoughts. "If I want to truly understand my superpowers, I need to start by breaking them down," Pandora mused silently. The weakest superpower, an Arcanist, as I've come to call them, would only have the first level of F-rank strength. And while some might dismiss such powers as useless, I know better. After all, I have an Arcanist that lets me detect lies, and that's proven invaluable. She watched as the children disappeared one by one through the portal, her mind still calculating. So, F-rank level 1 equals a single unit of paranormal power. I could call it P, short for paranormal power. Then, E-rank level 1 would be 10P, and mid-level E-rank would be 50P. D-rank level 1 would jump to 100P. By the time you reach C-rank, you're looking at 1000P at level 1 and 5000P at mid-level. Fascinating. By that logic, with all my favorite Arcanists combined, I currently have 121,700P of paranormal power within me. Pandora paused, a sudden realization striking her. Wait a minute. There's an Arcanist I completely overlooked, she thought, stifling a laugh. No wonder I can speak every language fluently. It's a level 1 F-rank Arcanist that lets me understand and speak all languages. How handy. Martina noticed her smirk and raised an eyebrow. What's so funny, Cascard? Martina asked as she prepared to step through the portal. Oh, nothing important, Pandora replied, still in her Cascard persona. I just found something I'd overlooked, that's all. Returning to her thoughts, Pandora considered the implications. That also explains why I can't steal any more Arcanists. How stupid of me to miss this earlier. Oh well, my storage of powers is maxed out. Looks like I'll need to offload some into my pocket dimension. The lights flickered again, then steadied. Pandora felt the hairs on her neck rise. How did I do that electromagnetic pulse again? She wondered. I only did it briefly last year. Oh, right. I gathered energy internally, then released it as a powerful, chaotic electric surge. But that wasn't all. I mixed it with other energies to make the electricity more erratic, like cosmic radiation disrupting electric fields in wires, devices, and entire systems. Focusing, Pandora unleashed another EMP, the wave rippling outward and shutting down the newly rebooted systems. But the few seconds of delay had been enough for their enemies to regroup and track them. Martina was gone. Only Camilla remained. Pandora glanced at her energy sword, weighing her options. She didn't like working with teammates. It always complicated things. Deciding quickly, she adjusted the portal, linking it to a location outside the facility. I can't predict how things will unfold from here, Pandora said aloud. But if you use your Arcanus, friction, neutralization, and whatever the other one was, together with your S-rank gravity manipulation, you might be useful. That said, it's still dangerous. I can send you away now and call you back when I need you. I know it's dangerous, Camilla replied, her voice unwavering, but I want to help you. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the halls. Pandora shifted the portal's position, placing it beneath herself and Camilla. The portal appeared as a jagged tear in reality, like a crack in a glass pane. Its depths were dark and infinite, interrupted only by the faint glow of a distant violet-black sun. The edges of the rift shimmered with crystalline patterns, giving the illusion of a fractured floor. The most unnerving feature, however, was the thin soap bubble-like film that covered the tear, shimmering with iridescent hues. Camilla gasped in surprise as the portal enveloped her body seeming to stretch endlessly into the infinite void. As Pandora and Camilla landed in the pocket dimension, it felt as though they had hit something solid. Yet, in a way, it wasn't possible for it to be truly hard or soft. It was the boundary of a reality itself. Only once Pandora sat there did she fully realize how incredible it was to have an entirely separate world of her own, a place where she could retreat at any time or escape if she needed to. There wasn't a single place she couldn't reach, as long as she knew the destination. Hey, what was that all about? Camilla asked, her voice tinged with irritation. I pulled us out of the underground facility, Pandora replied calmly. But now we have to wait a little while before I can use my power again. My portal ability is half drained, and if we go back now, I won't have the energy to escape again, so we'll need to wait about 30 minutes for it to recharge. I'm sorry if I startled you. That wasn't my intention. Camilla sighed but forgave her. I get it. Honestly, I'd probably do the same if I had your power, she admitted. But now the question remained, what should they do next? Pandora wasn't comfortable with letting the people of Nova continue their experiments unchecked. She felt they had to put an end to it. The problem is, I don't understand much about technology, Pandora confessed. I'll need your help. She lifted the illusion that masked her appearance. I can help, Camilla replied, but the question is how. If I use my Arcanus, it could be traced back to me. Close your eyes, Pandora instructed. Why? Camilla asked, suspicious. Trust me. I'm about to do something you shouldn't see, Pandora said, her tone cautious. Reluctantly, Camilla closed her eyes and continued talking. Meanwhile, Pandora released 5,000 P of energy into the pocket dimension, her power spreading like ripples in an endless void. I could lend you an Arcanus that fuses with your gravitational abilities to solve this problem, Pandora offered. Absolutely not, Camilla protested. I'm barely holding on with the 2 powers you've already given me. Don't add more. I wouldn't survive it. I'm done. You can open your eyes now, Pandora said. Camilla looked around the endless pitch-black space of the pocket dimension. It didn't seem much different than before. Together, they began discussing their next steps. Pandora wanted to storm the facility and destroy everything remotely related to their experiments, but Camilla was more rational. I need to understand how your portal Arcanus works before I can plan anything, Camilla said. Pandora explained that her portal ability allowed her to travel to any location she had seen or knew well, but only from within her pocket dimension. She could also use portals to move within a 50-meter radius without limits. However, the portals couldn't cut or damage anything. Pandora briefly glanced at the collection of superpowers she had stored away, the glowing light points of the Arcanus clairvoyance, and another power shimmered in the void. Meanwhile, back at Nova's research facility, power was restored, but the intruders were nowhere to be found. However, something unexpected happened. Their system flagged an emergency transmission, alerting them to keywords that appeared on the network. The intercepted audio played. "Could you repeat that?" a nervous woman's voice asked. "I'm reporting illegal human experiments being conducted in Alpha City's harbor, Section 7B. I have witnesses with me. We barely escaped. Please send heroes to rescue us. Nova Corporation is probably already monitoring this call," said Martina, also known as Specimen 39, speaking quickly. The scientists instantly recognized the voice of their longest-held test subject. Panic set in as they debated how to handle the situation. Cutting the connection would only draw attention, so they decided to use computer systems to mimic Martina's voice and overwrite the call. On the other end of the line, the woman listening grew uneasy. Something about the young girl's sudden shift in tone, claiming it had all been a joke, felt off. "This doesn't sit right," the woman muttered to herself. "This isn't something to joke about." She leaned back in her chair, her brown eyes narrowing in suspicion, only to feel two soft, rounded objects press against her back. Spinning around, she came face to face with Tempest, an S-rank hero. "I'm heading there." "Sounds interesting," Tempest says with a grin that could inspire both fear and admiration. The young woman sitting nearby stares at Tempest, her eyes scanning her from head to toe. Tempest's athletic, almost intimidating physique gives the illusion of a simple, sporty woman, but no one could be more mistaken. Beneath her exterior lies a warrior with a body built for combat, her lean muscles perfectly sculpted, exuding power and control. Her dark skin is a stark contrast to her piercing green eyes, which shimmer with an electrifying intensity. Her dark blue, short, tousled hair adds to her wild, untamed appearance. She wears nothing more than a revealing pair of leather shorts that leave little to the imagination, a loose, see-through t-shirt, and an open, sleeveless purple leather jacket. As she turns to leave, the light from the twin suns streaming through the window casts her silhouette in stark relief. The young employee's eyes widen in disbelief as she realizes Tempest isn't wearing anything beneath the shirt. The faint outline of her body is visible, a fleeting shadow teasing the limits of propriety. "Oh my God, my back just touched her," thinks the young woman, her face flushing red. As a lesbian and a rather quirky employee of the Heldenvereinigung, this encounter leaves her flustered. "We have a code blue," she announces, pressing a button on her desk with urgency. Her gaze follows Tempest's bare feet as she strides toward the window. Tempest's reputation precedes her, a loner, a thrill-seeker, a hero who sees fighting as a way of life. Known for her disdain for teamwork, Tempest thrives on battles where death is a very real possibility. The idea of dying doesn't scare her. What terrifies her is the thought of wasting her life without pushing herself to the limit. News spreads rapidly throughout the Heldenvereinigung that the infamous S-rank heroine is on the move once again, on another of her infamous solo missions. Over the years, it has become evident that no one can stop her once she sets her sights on a worthy fight. All the association can do is manage the fallout, keeping the media at bay and cleaning up the chaos she inevitably leaves behind. Approaching the window, Tempest signals for it to be opened, sparing the glass from being shattered by her dramatic exit. She begins hopping in place, her legs crackling with arcs of blue lightning. Electric bolts course from her waist to her knees and from her ankles to her toes, their intensity increasing with each bounce. Sparks fly as the ground beneath her feet starts to smolder. Employees hurriedly grab loose papers, knowing full well what's about to happen. "Well then, let's go," Tempest says, her real name, Lina Voltman, echoing in the minds of a few who know her personally. In an instant, she launches herself into the air. The shockwave from her departure sends papers fluttering through the office and tussles everyone's hair. Moments later, she can be seen streaking across the sky toward the harbor. While many believe Tempest can fly, the truth is more extraordinary. She doesn't fly in the traditional sense. Her immense physical strength allows her to strike or propel herself with such force that she defies gravity. She's one of the few in the world capable of achieving flight purely through raw power. "Not another solo mission," someone groans. "What's your issue with her?" asks the young woman from before, still trying to compose herself. "I'm in the media department. Last time I had to scrub the internet of all her, nude photos. It was a nightmare." Nude photos? Well, that's an exaggeration, he explains, exasperated. But Tempest has this habit. Her Arcanus, which allows her to manipulate electricity, generates so much friction when she's moving at supersonic speeds that her clothes, if they aren't specially made, don't survive. The result? She often finishes missions. Let's just say, less clothed than when she started. She can't wear something more durable? Beats me. Maybe she likes it that way, or maybe it's just another quirk. Honestly, the higher the hero rank, the crazier they seem to be, one way or another, he says with a shrug. The woman nods slightly, her mind still stuck on the image of Tempest's unrelenting confidence. She can't help but think, maybe being a little crazy is just part of being that powerful.
Meanwhile, in a dark room with a few stars in the sky, a violet-black sun hovers above. Pandora considers the idea a good one, leaving the portals open. It's not something she would have thought of herself, but it makes sense. Opening a portal to her pocket dimension requires a lot of energy, so leaving it open is like leaving a door ajar. If she also makes the portal invisible, she can move it as she pleases, and no one will be able to see it. What is this made of? Camilla asks, striking the boundary of reality. Light waves ripple outward from the spot she hit. That's the edge of this dimension. Why? Pandora replies. If you place your portal just in front of it, does that create a shield? Camilla asks. After some testing, they conclude that it indeed creates an indestructible shield. Additionally, since no physical damage seems possible in this dimension for unknown reasons, it's perfect. Wow, I never would have thought of that. You're cool, Camilla, Pandora says enthusiastically. You're pretty cool too. That third constellation thing sounds awesome, Camilla responds. Pandora smiles at the compliment and hugs Camilla before slipping through the portal, leaving it open. Pandora reappears, in the guise of Cascard, in the corridor of Nova Corporation's underground research facility. She lands with a dull thud, absorbing the impact with her legs. To those around her, her smoky figure is a threatening sight, a ghostly form made of black mist or smoke, intertwined with violet energy that seems to radiate from within her. I need to remember to leave room in my maximum energy level for the arcanes I can steal. Since paranormal energy must match my chaos energy, maybe the alternative is eating chaos. That definitely calls for creating a new persona. I've got it. I'll call this persona First Constellation Astralis, Chaos Eater. Pandora muses to herself. She hears footsteps approaching as the alarms begin blaring again. The noise irritates her, and with a thought, she silences it completely. At the same time, she ensures voices are still audible, allowing the guards' words to reach her, hands in the air. Surrender now, they demand. Nope, I don't think so, Pandora replies, walking toward them. They begin firing at her, but the energy projectiles strike something invisible and simply vanish. The thin, plasma-charged beams that would normally burn through most materials are completely nullified, something the guards have never seen before. How many abilities does this woman, or whatever the hell she is, have? Someone asks, his gaze shifting from the invisible shield nullifying their weapons to the glowing, slightly violet-edged sword floating in the air. Pandora lets her sword speak for her. Blood splatters the walls and floor as she slashes through the guards. One of them tries to defend himself by firing his horns as projectiles, but neither the shield nor the heat of her blade allows them to reach her. His resistance ends quickly. Pandora leans over what's left of him, feeling nothing as she steals his arcanes. Sliding her hand into her pocket dimension, she stores the stolen power away for later use. She doesn't need his horns at the moment. She finds a few more arcanes powers that interest her. One of them allows its user to grow an elastic, black tail, but she cannot steal it because it is a permanent mutation. Belonging to the mutation class, such powers cannot be stolen. Hearing more footsteps approaching, Pandora prepares herself as energy crackles through the air. Something hot slams into her abdomen, pushing her back against the wall. It doesn't hurt, but it shows just how adaptable Nova's forces are. One of the guards controls several glowing, metallic tentacles with his arcanes, while another throws aside his plasma impulse weapon, declaring it useless against her. With dark green hair and freckles, the second man forms a semicircle with his colleagues, surrounding Pandora. Their confidence is clear. Give up. You're outnumbered, and you're not getting away, declares a muscular man with red hair and brown skin. No, I think I'll kill you all and take whatever powers I like. You're not worthy of having these abilities. Surrender them willingly, and I'll grant you a quick death, Pandora says, trying to scare them. Her plan is to create confusion by implying she can either permanently destroy or steal their abilities. By playing the role of a deranged serial killer, Pandora hopes to unsettle them and gain the upper hand. She's coming, one of the guards shouts as Pandora suddenly charges. Just as she's about to reach him, he smiles, and something stops her. It feels as though an invisible force is slowing her down, pushing her back the closer she gets to him. I've got her. Quickly, Cadera, paralyze her, the blonde man shouts. Pandora's gaze shifts to the woman he called Cadera, who manipulates a strange liquid floating around her. The liquid forms into spiraling shapes that begin to spin, but it's a fraction of a second too late. Pandora pushes through the restraining force, slamming the man against the wall. Cadera fires her liquid projectiles, but with a swift turn, Pandora uses the blonde man as a shield. The projectiles strike him, leaving him limp. The sword floats in the air when she's not looking. That must be her weakness. If we all attack her together, she won't be able to focus on all of us at once, barks someone, likely the muscular man with dark skin and red hair. Pandora can't believe they'd continue fighting while she's holding a hostage. Their disregard only fuels her hatred for society. Humans are utterly corrupt in her eyes. As the silver tentacles approach again, Pandora notices they belong to the green-haired man. A single, powerful slash shatters the material of the tentacles. Interesting. He called his Arcanes Impulse Barrier. What a dumb name, but somewhat fitting, Pandora says aloud, stealing the man's Arcanes while still gripping his neck. She thinks about using this Arcanes immediately, but realizes that doing so would make her ability obvious. Even if others couldn't sense the paranormal energy directly, they'd recognize its effects.
Pandora smiled as she watched the strong man step forward, declaring he'd handle the situation. The moment he launched his punch, something held her in place. The power behind his strike could have been truly dangerous for her. Quickly, she opened a portal in front of herself and another behind him, causing his fist to land squarely on his own back. The shocked expressions of the men and women lasted only a moment in Pandora's view. She swiftly created a portal beneath herself and another 5 meters behind the man, dropping through just as she executed the move. Her sword trailed after her, curving mid-flight to strike the woman with the fullness-enhancing superpower. However, Pandora miscalculated. The blade only grazed the woman as she managed to dodge just in time. Pandora chuckled softly and stored the Arcanus she had just stolen in her pocket dimension. She felt relieved that offloading powers was far easier than refilling or swapping them out. Now that she had freed up some space, she could steal again. How is this possible? Someone muttered. She has multiple Arcanus. That should be nearly impossible, another exclaimed. Ow, she got me, the woman grumbled. Are you all right? Can you keep fighting? Asked the strong man. Yes, the woman began, but she couldn't finish her sentence. A thin beam of white light ended her career abruptly. I don't understand why they feel the need to talk so much during a fight. Did they think I would just stand here and wait? Pandora muttered to herself as she lowered her hand. The guards were visibly startled, having so little time to prepare. Most opponents Pandora had faced possessed only 1 or 2 superpowers, and these rarely complemented each other perfectly. But someone with such a harmonious combination of abilities was a statistical impossibility, or so they had believed. Now, shouted a nondescript man, touching the forehead of one of his companions, yet to use their ability. What happened next baffled Pandora. She suddenly lost her balance, unable to discern the direction of incoming attacks. For several seconds, her senses were so scrambled that she failed to avoid the strong man's next blow. With a resounding crash, she was hurled through a wall, dazed by the horn-like blare of impact. Before she could fully recover, the man was upon her again, striking her with unrelenting force. Pandora crashed through another metallic wall, feeling something snap within her. The pain brought her back to her senses, allowing her to narrowly dodge the next punch aimed at her. Damn it. If that disorienting attack hits me again, I'm screwed. As a last resort, I might have to use my vampire form, Pandora thought grimly. Suddenly, another alarm blared, adding to the cacophony. The noise served as a useful distraction for Pandora's enemies. Taking advantage of the chaos, she concentrated her remaining energy on a single point and unleashed it in a blinding, deafening whirlwind of destruction. The pain made it difficult for Pandora to stand. Her body refused to cooperate. This was turning into a serious problem. Then, the entire underground complex began to quake. Shocked, Pandora watched as the ceiling collapsed and walls crumbled. With a single thought, she transported herself out of the collapsing structure and into the fresh air. The wind whipped around her as Pandora instinctively shifted into her vampire form. Her gut told her it was necessary. Falling for only a second, she opened another portal to transport herself farther away. From a safe distance, she watched as a dark-skinned woman with green eyes and short, dark blue hair slammed into the ground. The impact created a massive crater, her punches sending shockwaves that hinted at her immense power. She had to be an A-rank or even S-rank hero. Lightning crackled around her, amplifying the chaos and destruction. How can this woman bring down a secured underground complex with just her bare fists? I can't believe what I'm seeing, Pandora thought. Wait, now I recognize her. She's the S-rank hero, Tempest. From her vantage point on a skyscraper, Pandora observed the scene using the Arcani's clarity, which allowed her to see everything in sharp detail. Tempest wore nothing but a few scraps of fabric, almost completely naked. The reason was obvious: her sheer power. Her strength was so overwhelming that her clothes couldn't withstand it. The intense heat generated by the lightning surging around her was enough to melt objects nearby. Combined, these factors made it impossible for clothing to last long, yet the woman seemed utterly unbothered by it. It's truly surprising how strong someone on the S-rank can be, isn't it, my love? Camilla's voice rings out as she steps out of nowhere, her tone casual yet playful. Pandora, still momentarily caught off guard, reflects on her recent discovery. It had indeed been possible to move her portal through another portal, something she had not been sure was achievable until now. What astonished her most was the efficiency of the process. By her estimation, maintaining an already open portal consumed only about 10% of the energy required to open a new one. Yes, you're right, my love, Pandora replies with a faint smile, her tone thoughtful. But it's a shame I couldn't steal all the abilities from Nova's guards. If I understand it correctly, you can steal powers from anyone who's still alive, right? Camilla asks, her curious eyes gleaming. Yes, that's correct. Why do you ask? Pandora's voice carries a hint of intrigue. Well, Camilla begins, a sly grin forming. As I mentioned before, that means we can always help ourselves by breaking into prisons whenever we need to. Pandora chuckles softly at the suggestion. True, but speaking of powers, I'd like to take back the 2 abilities I lent you for testing purposes, okay? Why? Camilla's tone shifts slightly, a mix of curiosity and hesitation, as a sudden flash of light illuminates the sky. Tempest strikes again, her figure a blinding silhouette cloaked in light and crackling electricity. From this distance, she appears more like a blurred outline, faintly tinted with a sepia hue. I just want to lift the burden from you, Pandora explains calmly. Yeah, that might be a good idea, at least until I've fully mastered my own powers, Camilla concedes. Then, with a spark of curiosity, she asks, but why can you handle so many abilities without any issues? Pandora smirks faintly. I think it's better if I show you instead of explaining. Ensuring that no one is watching them atop the high-rise building, Pandora dispels her illusion, revealing her true form. Her body shifts, becoming a dark silhouette filled with countless orbs of glowing light, each one a different color. The display is mesmerizing, almost otherworldly. This, Pandora begins, gesturing at her form, is an illusion I created to visualize the flow of paranormal energy within my body. My power to steal abilities neutralizes the disruptions caused by the clashing wavelengths of different powers. Think of it this way. Instead of the colors mixing and creating chaos, they simply overlap, like this. She gestures to the orbs within her form. In your case, Camilla, I assume the powers mix, which is what causes interference. But this is just my theory. Camilla's eyes widen, sparkling with admiration and excitement. That's incredible, she breathes. After talking a little more, they decide to return to the Helios Hero Academy. Fighting an S-rank hero like Tempest, they conclude, is simply not worth the risk at the moment. Here, Camilla says, handing Pandora a small map. I've marked locations where you can teleport us into the Hero Academy undetected. These spots aren't monitored and are rarely visited. Won't it seem suspicious if we suddenly appear somewhere we weren't before? Pandora asks, raising an eyebrow. That's true, Camilla admits, tapping her chin thoughtfully. But it would only matter if we'd already left the school grounds, which we have. Oh, whatever. Just use one of the outer points on the map. If you want, I can research a few more discrete spots for you. Pandora smiles, appreciating Camilla's thoroughness. A few seconds later, they teleport near the Helios Academy. Minutes pass as they stroll through the main entrance, chatting casually. Camilla informs Pandora that she's finished mapping the chaos zones. Thanks, Pandora says, her interest piqued. I'm really curious about the anomalies and the strength of those chaos zones. They serve multiple purposes for me. First, I can absorb the chaos energy from those areas. Secondly, I can harvest exclusive chaos crystals to use as grenades. And of course, I'm just generally intrigued by the mysteries of these zones. I barely know anything about them so far. When they reach the student residences, Pandora begins reviewing a list of heroes who possess practical or dangerous abilities. At the top of her list is the hero Block. This individual can deactivate any paranormal power, a threat that Pandora can't take lightly. From her research, Block's ability appears to require speaking to activate, a condition Pandora must ensure never occurs. But the real question is whether his power relies on sound waves or if it merely requires the act of exhaling. If it's the latter, Pandora currently has no means of countering him. I need something that protects me from abilities that can paralyze or otherwise restrict me, Pandora thinks as she enters the shared living room. That's interesting, Tomoko comments, her gaze fixed on a news projection. The report covers the recent incident at the harbor. Tempest, still partially injured, is featured, though her appearance is heavily censored due to her near-naked state during the fight. A black cloak has been draped loosely around her shoulders, but it seems she didn't bother to adjust it. Where were you two? Mio asks suddenly. We were on a date. Got a problem with that? Camilla snaps, her tone defensive, like a cat ready to hiss. No. I just thought it was odd, considering the unsolved murder during the break, Mio replies, awkwardly. Oh, so just because we're having fun, we're so suspicious to you? I guess you just don't like the fact that we're lesbians, Camilla retorts sharply. That's not what I meant. I have nothing against you liking women. I just think it's disrespectful. Mio stammers. Leave me alone already. I'm not interested in you, Mio. And just because we're not obsessing over the murder doesn't mean we don't care. We just want to enjoy our lives instead of constantly worrying about tomorrow. And no, I don't feel much sympathy for someone I didn't know. Pandora feels no need to hide her indifference, as there's no suspicion linking her to the incident. After all, she was the one who reported the murder in the first place. Besides, her combination of body enhancement and plasma abilities couldn't produce the signature flames found at the crime scene. And even if they could, the fragmented energy signature there doesn't match her powers. As Pandora leaves the room, she hears someone asking what just happened, followed by another voice complaining about prejudice against same-sex love. The latter belongs to Reno, who casually comes out as gay. Cool. Someone else swinging the other way. Pandora thinks with a shrug. Honestly, I don't care if he's gay or straight. I'm not even interested in him. If anything, I'd say I'm into both genders. And Camilla really is one hell of a catch. Pandora locks her door and throws herself onto her bed, smiling as Camilla joins her moments later. They talk for a while before falling asleep in the same bed. The intimacy between them feels natural, and Pandora doesn't mind how quickly their relationship is progressing. After all, with a life as uncertain as hers, every moment of happiness is something she refuses to take for granted. No matter how long Theodore reads the diary, he can't shake the feeling that he's missing something. There's an elusive detail, something just out of reach that gnaws at him. The plans to hurt him abruptly stop after a certain entry, which only heightens his unease. The following pages describe his daughter's longing to repay him for all his cruelty and her obsessive love for Pandora. Then the tone shifts to places she dreams of visiting once she's free of her father's torment. But soon her fantasies take a darker, more unsettling turn, erotic and twisted. And then abruptly comes another section that makes no sense to him. Theodore's chest tightens. He doesn't know what to make of it. Could it be my fault that my daughter turned out this way? Did I push her too hard to become the strongest? Theodore mutters aloud. He closes the diary with a heavy sigh and turns his gaze toward his wife, Sarah, who is quietly setting breakfast on the table. She says nothing, her eyes carrying the same haunted depth as those of their children. Theodore feels the weight of his failures. He wonders at what point his relentless ambition consumed him so completely. Placing the diary on the table, he tells Sarah to put it back and lock the door to Camilla's room. She nods silently. Then he asks if Camilla still has the key to her room. When Sarah confirms, he instructs her to return the key to him once the diary is secured. Minutes later, she hands him the key. Without a word, Theodore crushes the metal key in his hand, reshaping it into a perfect, smooth sphere. I won't invade my children's privacy again. You can give them the keys to their rooms, or destroy them. It was wrong of me to keep spare copies, Theodore admits, realizing his mistake. He reflects bitterly on how he's failed as a father, that his own daughter would even entertain thoughts of hurting him, whether by physically attacking him or by injuring herself just to see his reaction, is horrifying. Though no physical injury could truly harm him, given his unmatched strength and resilience, the emotional scars run deep. Theodore feels an ache in his chest, a yearning to see his youngest daughter, the third child he shares with Sarah. But as he soon learns from his secretary, the Helios Academy forbids parents from visiting during school hours, regardless of their status. Clenching his teeth, he accepts this restriction. Perhaps it's for the best, he tells himself. If his daughter wishes to spend as little time with him as possible, he has no right to force an encounter. It's fine. I don't need to see her. Don't pull any strings or call in favors to get me access. I think that would only put more pressure on her. It's probably good for her to have some space without me constantly looking over her shoulder, Theodore says to his secretary, who had suggested exploiting their connections. Leaning back in his plush leather chair, Theodore watches as his secretary leaves, visibly puzzled by the change in his boss's demeanor. Something about Theodore has shifted, but the secretary can't quite put his finger on it. Meanwhile, at the Helios Academy, the school day begins. Students pour out of their dorms, making their way to class. In classroom 1K, an unexpected announcement awaits. Good morning, everyone. I'm your new homeroom teacher, a tall, confident man announces. The man introduces himself as Wandel Bravel, known to the world as the Hero Block. He explains that their previous teacher had to step down due to personal reasons. You've all had time to adjust to school life, so today we'll start with some theory indoors before heading outside for training. Any questions? Wandel asks. Pandora, Camilla, Frank, Tomoko, Fox, and Makito all raise their hands at once. Pandora watches curiously, eager to hear what the others will say. When Fox is called on first, Pandora's gaze drifts to the girl with silver hair that shimmers in the sunlight. Fox's golden eyes glint as she asks, "What about the humanoid monsters that have been in the news lately?" Pandora's interest peaks. She doesn't know much about these monsters herself. There's no real danger, Wandel replies. We have multiple layers of protection, not just the superheroes who defend our cities. So far, these monsters have retreated whenever they've suffered enough losses. But that's not enough, Fox counters. There must be a reason why these monsters are behaving this way. Surely someone is looking into it. Her voice carries an air of concern, but as Pandora listens, a sharp pang hits her chest. Her lie detection ability activates automatically. Lie. Pandora's eyes narrow. Why would Fox lie about being worried? This just got interesting, Pandora thinks. Her attention now, laser focused. She listens as Tomoko speaks next, theorizing that these monsters exhibit strategic behavior, almost as if they're deploying their abilities like human combatants. Frank chimes in, suggesting that the monsters might be controlled by someone, or could even be the result of a superpower. His theory leaves the room stunned. The idea that a superpower could create or control such monsters is something few have considered. Pandora notices Fox scoffing at the idea, claiming that no superpower could accomplish such a thing. Lie. Pandora's ability flares again. Her curiosity deepens. What is Fox hiding? What should I do? I don't know whether I should cover up my father's activities or just play my role here. On top of that, I have no idea what Necron and the Arcanite are planning. These attacks just don't fit my father's motivations, Fox thinks, an image of the undead under Necron's control flashing through her mind. She doesn't know what to say or do, as she has no interest in power or influence like her father. Fox is content with what she has, and that's enough for her. She glances at Pandora and notices a sparkle in her violet eyes. It seems as though Pandora has discovered something that piques her interest. However, Pandora exudes a strange aura that unsettles Fox. It reminds her of something that shouldn't exist, something that defies reality. How did I miss this aura until now? This power feels as if it ignores and rewrites the logic of the world. It must be chaos. But how can Pandora possess such an aura? Fox wonders. The fact that she only notices this energy now could stem from several reasons. First, it's deemed highly unlikely that a second child of chaos could exist. Second, chaos auras might only be perceptible through intuition and emotions, rendering any technological attempts to detect them completely useless. However, this leaves one pressing question. How was Pandora born? This question intrigues Fox deeply. Maybe she doesn't even know that she's a child of chaos. But wait, why does she even have superpowers if she's a child of chaos? Shouldn't she only have chaos traits or abilities? Could she copy superpowers or something? No, that's not it. Wasn't there an incident recently where multiple powers were reported being used at that museum, but it wasn't clear how many? Fox muses. Pandora notices Fox glancing at her repeatedly and feels an ominous knot in her stomach. Something is wrong, and she decides to keep an eye on Fox. All right, let's begin today's lesson, says Wendell, also known as Block. He starts recounting the history of superpowers, taking the class back over 1,000 years to a time when humanity played a minor role in the world and magical beings ruled over everything. Well, not much has changed today. We only control about 3% of the world's surface. Fox interjects suddenly. That's true, but I didn't call on you, Wendell replies curtly. Where was I? Ah, yes. Humanity lived under the dominion of mythical creatures for a long time. Then, the first hero was born. The era of Arcanus and science began with a radiant child, Wendell explains. What follows is a flood of praise for humanity and condemnation of monsters and mythical beings. To Pandora, it feels like no one is even considering that the world is more complicated than just good versus evil. Despite their short lifespans, humans seem to evolve very slowly, something that strengthens Pandora's resolve to change this world. After the first lesson of the day, Pandora whispers to Camilla that she must keep a close watch on Fox because something about her feels off. Pandora takes a moment to ensure no one can hear her by securing the surroundings with her illusions. She distorts the sound to make it seem like kissing noises. However, this act unintentionally triggers something later. Fox senses something strange when she hears the noises. She can't pinpoint what it is, but it feels to her like an Arcanus power is at work. Yet, it's difficult to discern whose power it might be. Should I keep spying on those two women or not? Fox ponders. Her suspicion that Pandora might be a child of chaos grows slightly stronger. Though uncertain, the idea lingers. Fox suddenly feels a pang of envy as she considers Camilla. She wishes she had someone like that, someone who loves her, or even just a friend who isn't using her to get closer to her father. Fox has always envied Pandora. For as long as she can remember, she's been just one among many daughters, treated as replaceable. She never cared about her clan's interests, which is why she feels detached from them now. As Fox considers leaving, she hears someone fall to the ground and becomes concerned. Not knowing what possesses her, she turns the corner and sees Pandora and Camilla lying on top of each other on the ground. I knew she'd follow us. I think she suspects us of something, Pandora says to Camilla. The two women watch as Fox quickly walks away. It's clear that she saw something she wasn't expecting. What did you show her? Camilla asks. I showed her us making out on the floor and getting a little handsy, Pandora replies with a sly smile. That's unexpected, but fitting. About keeping an eye on her, I can do that, but my resources aren't limitless. I've got a few bugs and drones, but that's about it, Camilla says. Bugs and drones? Wait, drones? Those are the little helicopter things, right? The cool ones? Pandora asks. Yeah, exactly. And bugs are devices you use to listen in on what people are saying, Camilla explains. The two of them formulate a plan, knowing they'll need to head back to their next class after the break. The practical part of hero training focuses on using one's arcanus under different conditions. It includes scenarios like rescuing people from various situations. But Pandora couldn't care less. She sees no reason to save people who have nothing to do with her. She trains half-heartedly, her mind focused on her plans. Her goal is clear, to build a reputation for her organization while strengthening her Chaos Arcanus. To achieve this, I should use the persona of the first constellation, Astralis, to consume chaos. The question is, which chaos zone should I start with, and how much chaos do I even need? But that doesn't matter, I can experiment. For now, it's best to wait and see how the world turns. Maybe in a moment, or in a year, I'll make my move, Pandora muses to herself. What concerns her, however, is her teacher's arcanus, the ability to disable others' powers. She knows it requires him to speak to activate it. Asking him directly about it would be awkward. Pandora decides that patience is the key here as well. So I'll focus on my organization. I'll be the highest authority with the constellations directly under me. Beneath them will be my subordinates. The constellations will serve me exclusively, creating the illusion that these powers belong to different individuals. I'll simply act as I'm many people. It's all a charade to ensure no one knows I have all these abilities. This will be quite amusing, Pandora thinks. Still, Pandora is preoccupied with a crucial question: how to attract the attention of those she truly wants, society's outcasts, the ones neglected by the system. This thought gives her a headache. Time passes and the lesson ends. During the break, friendship groups form, but Pandora isolates herself to think. She doesn't care about making friends. Eventually, she notices Fox approaching her. Hi, Pandora. May I sit with you? Fox asks as she finds her. Pandora is sitting on a bench by the path. She closes the hologram projected above her bracelet and looks up at Fox, wondering what brought her here. Pandora notices that Fox no longer refers to her condescendingly as a city dweller. This shift catches her attention. Sure. How can I help you? Pandora says. You remind me of someone I know well. How should I put this? Fox hesitates, unsure how to phrase her thoughts. She can't just blurt out whether Pandora is a hybrid of some kind. Pandora, do you ever feel different from other people? I mean, in a special way? Fox asks cautiously. Huh? Are you asking if I have two arcanus or something? Pandora counters. No, not that. I mean, something else, Fox replies, sitting beside Pandora. I mean, have you ever noticed anything about yourself that sets you apart in another way? Well, I guess I've always been a bit cold. I've never really had strong emotions. But what exactly are you getting at? Pandora asks. I need to be more specific, but if she doesn't even know, I'll just seem strange. Whatever. I'll just ask. Worst case, I'll say it was a joke, Fox thinks to herself. I wanted to ask, are you a child of chaos? Fox finally says, unsure if she's even interpreted things correctly. For a moment, a dangerous glint flashes in Pandora's eyes, but it vanishes just as quickly. Fox watches for her reaction, but Pandora only looks confused. What's a child of chaos supposed to be? Pandora asks, genuinely puzzled. Nothing. It's just something unimportant, Fox stammers, feeling uncertain. She isn't sure if Pandora is truly a child of chaos, or if she misread the signs. After all, the odds of two children of chaos existing are slim, and even if another existed, there's no guarantee they'd know what they are. Besides, many humanoid beings, elves, fae, and polymorphs, could blend into human society without drawing attention. And what am I even supposed to do with this information about another child of chaos? Fox wonders as she stands up from the bench. She bids Pandora goodbye and walks away, missing the murderous glare Pandora throws at her retreating back. Fox, lost in thought, feels abandoned and neglected when she recalls her parents. Her father's words echo in her mind. On the one hand, he tasked her with overseeing the production of soldiers. On the other, he sent her to this hero school to better understand city dwellers. But deep down, it feels like he just wanted her out of sight. Thinking back on her life in the clan, Fox realizes she's only ever been known as the chief's daughter, not as her own person. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. If you click on the left side of the screen, you'll find my latest uploaded video. On the right side, you'll see the playlist where all the videos of this story are listed. I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, take care and goodbye.